Hello students, welcome to Dhaka Secondary School, North Karachi campus, and you are watching today 9 and metric class, English class. And this slide is prepared and presented by Sir Farhan. And today our learning agenda is active and passive voice. And active and passive, we today learn verb, tense, active, passive, then steps of conversion from active to passive, chart of active and passive voice, all the tenses active to passive. So here comes our first topic, verb. Basically, verb is what? Verb always talks about time and action and state. Basically, verb is the most important part of an action. Verb has two types, an action and state. So here comes the first kind of a verb, stative verb. Basically, stative verbs talks about always state rather than action. Here comes the example of stative verbs. I like cheese. He believes in God. She knows me very well. So stative verbs always talk about states rather than action. Here comes second kind of verb, action verb. What is action verb? Basically, action verbs has always action, which we can see easily. So action verbs has two types: intransitive verbs and transitive verbs. Intransitives are such actions in which an action does not require any object to complete it. Okay, you can see the example here. He laughed loudly. So laugh does not need any object here. In the second, she fell on the ground. So fell does not require any object to complete the sense of the sentence. But when we talk about transitive verbs, so transitive verbs, such action verbs which requires object to complete its meaning. So Alex sent a postcard from Argentina. So Alex sent what? Alex sends postcard. So postcard is object which requires which is required by sent, verb which is transitive verb. So transitive verbs requires object, and intransitive verb does not require any object to complete its meaning. So now students, we move towards our topic tense. Basically, tense is always talk about time. When we talk about present, past and future time, there we always tense. So there are three types of tense: present, past and future. And in English we have four conditions: simple or indefinite condition, continuous or progressive condition, perfect continuous condition. So here you see the complete list of tenses of English language. So first of all, when we talk about habits or repeated action, there we use simple condition. In simple we learn present simple, past simple, future simple. When we talk about continuous condition, so continuous condition talk about ongoing actions, and present continuous, past continuous and future continuous, we talk about this. When we talk about perfect condition, so perfect condition talks about what? Completed action. In present perfect, in past perfect, in future perfect, we learn this. And when we talk about perfect continuous condition, it talks about ongoing action which has been going on with the past time. So there we use perfect continuous, and in perfect continuous we use present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous and future perfect continuous tense. Okay students, now I am moving towards active voice. So active voice is what? Basically when we talk about active voice, so there we always focus on subject, and subject is the doer of the action in that sentence, and we always focus on subject in active voice. So here comes the example of active voice. Monkey adores banana. So monkey is subject here. Adore is an action verb, which bananas, the verb which has been done on, that is bananas. Banana is object. So in active voice we always focus on subject. If there is no object, so we can make active voice, but it is not possible to make it passive. Okay friends, now you can see second example. The cashier counted the money. The cashier is subject here. He is doing something. What he is doing? He is counting what? He is counting what? The money. And in the last, the dog chased the squirrel. The dog is doing the verb of chasing, and he is chasing to whom? The squirrel. Squirrel is object here. So in active voice we use the formula. We always use subject first, then helping verb, then verb different forms, and then object. But when we talk about passive voice, in passive voice we always focus on object rather than subject, and we also focus on verb in passive voice. So without object we cannot make passive voice. Here you can see the example of passive voice, how to convert active into passive. So this is the example of passive voice which we learned in the last slide. Bananas are told by monkey. So I have used object bananas first, then I use helping verb, then verb for third form, and before subject I use by preposition. This is the second example of passive voice. The monkey was counted by the cashier. So here we focus on subject or on object rather than subject, and on verb. So the squirrel was chased by the dog. So here we can see the formula of passive voice. We always use object first, then we use helping verb, then verb, third form. Okay, and before using subject we always use preposition by. And in objective case we use subjective case when we put object first, and in the last we use subject in passive voice. But when we use subject, so we use its objective case if we have any personal pronoun. So here you can see the conversion of tenses from active to passive. First step is to convert subject into object and object into subject in converting active to passive. In second object we use respective helping verbs of the tenses. And third step we always use third form in passive voice, and before subject we use by, and in the last we use subject and its objective case. So here you can see, students, the chart of active and passive voice. So in one line you can see tenses and helping verbs of active voice, and second right hand side you see passive voice tenses and helping verbs. So here you see present simple helping verb and its tense, but in passive voice we use is/am/are helping verb, in past simple did, but in past simple we use was verb. So you can see different examples and different helping verbs and tenses here one by one. So past continuous was verb, but in passive voice we use was being and were being. Future continuous will be, but there is no passive of future continuous. In present perfect has been and have been in passive voice. Past perfect had been. Future perfect will have, but in passive future perfect will have been. Present perfect continuous has been and have been, but in passive voice we use no passive in passive voice. In past perfect continuous we use had been in active voice, but in passive voice there is no passive. In future perfect we use will have been in active voice, but in future perfect we do not make any passive voice. So in active we have 12 tenses altogether, but in passive we use only 8 tenses. So future continuous, present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous, and future perfect continuous, we do not have such tenses. So these are the example and sentences, examples of active to passive, how to convert active to passive. So here comes present simple, he writes a letter every day. I have used first subject here, he writes a letter every day, but in passive I have used object first. A letter is object in this sentence, and I have used is written. We always use third form by him, and before when I use he in the last of passive voice, I converted its case subjective into objective case. So in past she taught me yesterday, but in passive I was taught by her yesterday. So student, if you use all the steps which I told you earlier in the slide, you can easily make active to passive. They will play a match tomorrow, but in passive I will make it soccer will be played by them tomorrow. Present continuous I am breaking the rule, but in passive the rule is being broken by me here. In past continuous we were enjoying the picnic last day, but in past continuous in passive we mean the picnic was being enjoyed by our last day. In future continuous we use you will be advising me tomorrow, but there is no passive there is no sentence in passive voice. So here comes present perfect present perfect. I have replied him, but in present perfect we do not use any. We make it he has replied by me now. In past perfect she had done this, but in past perfect in passive this had been done by her. Future perfect she will have flown a kite. In future perfect a kite will have been flown by her. So here students come such sentences of active voice which are not possible in passive. We do not make present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous, and future perfect continuous in passive voice. Okay students, I hope you got the idea about it, about active and passive, how to convert it. Okay, thank you inshallah. See you soon again. Thank you.